So this week's Love Fly podcast episode, we're joined by Lisa Raggatt, who's been in the Love Fly group, and I feel like I kind of know your story a bit, but this is a chance to, as you quite rightly said, you found podcasts helpful, so you're going to do the same for other people. And, other humans will listen to this, and they'll find it helpful when you share your little bit of wisdom. So I'm going to be coffee and water throughout. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. Go back as far as you like for a fear-of-flying journey, and where you are in the world, and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, so I live on my own with my little dog, and I've been thinking back to where this fear started. I never flew much as a child. We weren't blessed with the money to, fly abroad, but so I think my first flight was maybe 14 or 15 years old, and I actually remember because we were sat on the aeroplane at Birmingham Airport waiting to take off, and I was absolutely petrified. And I remember saying to my dad, "Can I get off the plane and I'll get a taxi back home?" And he was like, "Oh, don't be silly." And I had massive anxiety, so I moved away from the window, and then we took off. And I was fine. And then I was like, "Can I go back to the window, please?" And I really enjoyed it. So I was, even on my first flight, I was nervous, but I did end up enjoying it.
What do you think that was about then?
I just think it was the fear of the unknown because I'd never flown before.
Right.
And the flight home was fine. And then I don't remember really flying much more until I was in my late 20s. And I flew a few times and it was fine. And I remember one particular flight coming back from Mallorca. I think this was maybe 2007. So I'd have been 27. And it was bad turbulence. When I say bad, I feel silly saying that now because I've done so much more research, and it was bad to me then anyway. And I was crying, and the person I was with was trying to calm me down, and I was hysterical, and that really knocked my confidence for a few more years. But I didn't stop flying. I flew, but I was anxious, and then of course over the years, you just build that confidence back up, and you have a few good flights, and then you're okay until maybe the next scary one. But the problem started for me. Actually, no, let me go back a bit. So I worked in music. So I was a tour manager and a PA for artists that left the X Factor show. And
That's so cool.
it was a cool job. It was a cool job. But that meant me flying all over Europe, and I would just effortlessly go to the airport, get on the plane, and I'd be one of those people that would just fall asleep. And it was amazing because I had no fear at all. So I'd fly with the artist or I'd fly on my own. It didn't bother me. And that career ended in 2013, 14, when I actually got married. Life became very routine, and I couldn't live out of a suitcase anymore. So I moved back here where I am now, which is in Tewkesbury in Gloucestershire, and lived a married life. And we got married in November 2015, and on our wedding day, we vowed every anniversary we'd wake up in a different country. Well, for the first 3 anniversaries, that was okay. But then we had a blimmin' Ryanair flight to Malta, and it ruined everything. That's just where it all went wrong. So it was a takeoff from Bristol. I can't remember, Bristol or Birmingham. And, we were saving a few quid. So I was married to a female. So she was sat down there and I was sat back, at the back of the plane next to this poor old woman. She must have wanted to hang herself by the time we got to Malta because I tortured the poor woman. And it was a really, really bad takeoff. Out of all the takeoffs I've had, I've never had a bad one, but that one was. And I think because at the beginning of the flight was where the shake, it just felt like we were really violently shaken. And the plane felt very unsteady. And of course, once we got to the cruising level, it was okay. But the fear then, it was already there and it was growing. And Malta's like 4.5, maybe 5 hours away. And that poor woman sat next to me. I was really crying and she was stroking my arm. She was trying to soothe me. But the whole flight, it was just that anxiety in anticipation. Is it going to happen again or is it not? And that was all it took, literally. And I was absolutely petrified. And it's since then, it's been such a journey.
So do I understand then? So up until then, when you're having your sort of your three, your anniversary flights, you were fine, and there's no nervousness, anxiety.
No. Now, don't get me wrong. I've never been one to think I want to fly 10 hours to Thailand or however long it is. It's a long flight. But around Europe, up to 3, 4, 5 hours, I was okay. And, we had 3+ holidays, which were okay. And I was always a bit anxious, but I could just deal with it. And it was no more than me, traveling, for example, on the train, travel anxiety and things like that. So flying, it really didn't bother me because I'd flown so much during, the music career. I'd built up such confidence, and it was that one flight to Malta and it just ruined everything.
Yeah. Okay.
So
But what do you think was your thought process that happened with that flight that changed so dramatically?
I was petrified. It petrified me, and I just couldn't shake off that feeling. And I think I'm quite susceptible to fears and phobias anyway, because I had a really bad phobia of vomiting, and that actually controlled my life massively when I had CBT for that. So I think once you get like one fear of something, I think you easily can grow another because you're naturally, well, I'm a natural anxious person anyway. And it honestly, it just petrified me. It scared the living daylights out of me. And that was enough for me to say, I'm never flying again. And of course, when you're married to somebody who loves to travel and wants to see the world, and you had this, promise that every November you'd wake up in a different country, it was an incredible amount of pressure. And the marriage ended. It didn't end purely because of that, but it was a big contributing factor that I couldn't travel, and she wanted to go on holiday. I did try and take measures to overcome it. I paid for hypnotherapy and went to London and had hypnotherapy, but it didn't do a thing. I think I was just far too cynical for that. And I think with hypnotherapy, you have to literally let yourself go and just be open. And I think I went in with the wrong mind frame, to be honest. But I tried it, and then I booked onto the EasyJet Fearless Flyer course, which is a 2-day course, and that was in Bristol. So it was a day in a classroom. I actually think, was there a captain, an EasyJet captain called Emma? I think she was there. I remember her. And the classroom was very useful. It informed you of everything you could possibly need to know. And at that point, my only fear was turbulence and the anticipation of it happening.
Yeah.
But when we got to Bristol on the Sunday for the test flight, because I was in a room of, I don't know, 200 people who had different fears of flying, I just absorbed them all. Right. And I then become scared of the door closing, or even getting on the plane, the door closing, takeoff, the landing, just things that had never bothered me before. But anyway, we got to Bristol Airport, and so many people were crying and physically upset and couldn't even get on the plane. And I was determined to get on the plane. Lots of people got off just before the door closed, but I didn't. And I was actually made friends with a young girl who I
was going on then.
I know, and I do think of things like that. I made friends with a young girl who I felt was more scared than me because she'd actually removed herself from an airport on a family going on a family vacation, and she'd gone back home. And I'd never done that. And I thought, if she can do it, I can do it. We're going to be okay. And then we literally took off from Bristol. We went to Wales. It was about 10 minutes and then we were back down. And I remember them playing People Proud, that song, What Have You Done Today to Make You Feel Proud? And everyone was clapping, cheering. The girl beside me, she was overjoyed. She was so happy. And I was petrified. And I vowed that day I would never fly again. That everything scared me, from being on the plane, the door closing, wasn't even turbulent at all. And it just, for me, that just grew my fear from being about turbulence to just being in the enclosed space, the door closing, not being able to escape. It just went from one thing to 7 or 8 different things.
Yeah. So can I just ask, so thank you for sharing that. So first of all, let's just sort of shine a light on. So just to make a point, how many people do you think turned up and then didn't take the flight?
I would say about 20.
Right. Okay. But you did.
I did.
Okay. So that's straight away. So 20 people got off, didn't
Yeah.
go on, but you did get on it. The other thing I'll say is, I've said this before, is that sometimes with the best intentions, these courses can be re-traumatizing, because you're not quite ready. So the fact you did it is remarkable. And it might have just been that you weren't just, you were picking up, because when you're in a highly anxious state, you're ultra receptive to stuff going on around you, and you sound like you might be quite empathic. So you've kind of like, you're sort of going through it with everybody else as well and picking up all their stuff.
Honestly, I think that's what it was. I think I was just absorbing everything. And I remember when that flight landed and they played that bloody song and everyone else was like cheering, and I just felt absolutely devastated because I did think it was going to be a magic cure. I did. And now listening to your podcasts, I realized it needs a lot more work than that.
Yeah, and just to sort of clarify something as well, I'm going to challenge something you just said there, because you've just made an always statement. And everybody was cheering. I would guarantee you that there were some people on that flight who were like you, but we haven't spoken to them, because it can be a momentary thing, but also you can't see everybody. So I want you to sort of remove a little bit of the beat yourself up element, if you don't mind.
Okay, I will remove some.
If that was an annoying phrase, I'll take it out of the podcast.
No. You can leave it in there. It's a fair comment. And the thing is, when your emotions are so heightened, it's so easy to just go to that default area where you think you've done crap and everyone else has done amazing. And I'm a very big self-sabotager anyway. So, and it was an achievement. We literally flew to blimmin' Wales and back, but I was disappointed in myself. And EasyJet put the picture on where everyone's holding up the certificate, and you can just see in my face that I was like, I want my money back. As a last ditch attempt, this was the last time we ever went away together, my ex-wife and myself. We flew to Paris on the anniversary, 45-minute flight. So I did fly again after that EasyJet course, because I just felt like if I didn't, it just wasn't going to be good for the marriage, really. 45 minutes to Paris, and I just cried and cried and cried the whole way there and the whole way back. And I actually kind of resented my then partner, because I thought, do you know what? If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't even be suffering like this. I wouldn't be feeling so scared that I'm physically crying on an airplane to go to Paris. And Paris was amazing, and we went to Disneyland, and we did all the normal things. But I just couldn't enjoy it, because I knew within a couple of days, we'd be on that plane again. And the minute we landed, I vowed then I would rather die than fly again. And I never flew again until last Tuesday.
Oh, what brilliant timing for today, though. I'd rather die than fly again.
Genuinely, and that's with my hand on my heart. I genuinely felt
really powerful statement, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a genuine feeling as well. So,
okay, so all right. So you've obviously made some remarkable progress, and I get the sense from what you wrote beforehand that there's still some work to go, but you've made quite a shift. So talk us through kind of like what was the turning point for you to decide to start doing something, to go from I'd rather die than fly to I'll fly and hopefully not die.
There are a few things. Firstly, so obviously we separated. I moved into my own home. That was March 2020, and then we went straight into lockdown. I've just come out of your lockdown podcast actually, so I felt like we were back in it for a while. So yeah, then fast forward a couple of years, and you need a break. I needed a break, and of course, what am I going to do? Go, I don't know, down to the coast again, or it's difficult when you're so restricted with travel. I mean, obviously, you've only really got England, Wales, and whatever else. So I thought, this was maybe 2 years ago. I thought I'll go to Amsterdam. It's a different country, and it's abroad. And so I drove 3 hours to Hull, maybe 3.5 to 4. It was a long way. Got on the boat, and sailed the night boat to Rotterdam.
Yeah.
And that was great early in the evening, 2-for-1 cocktails, entertainment. It was nice. Well, everyone had gone to bed. It must have been about 2-3 in the morning. And we're hitting the Netherlands area, sorry. And the boat started getting choppy. Really, really choppy. Well, it felt really choppy to me anyway. To the point where I woke up and I was thinking, this is quite scary. And I started walking the floor of the boat, the deck, to see if anyone else was around, if anyone else was anxious or scared. Well, of course they wasn't. And everyone was just sleeping, and it was just me. And I remember that choppy feeling lasted 3 or 4 hours until we weren't too far from docking. I was so annoyed at myself because I thought, you've literally been led in bed, anxious that the boat's going to sink for what, 3-4 hours, when you could have just done an hour on an airplane and been there. And that was the thing for me. And actually, when I was flying last week, and at times I did feel it was a little bit shaky. That's what I was thinking. For the sake of 1 hour, like, just suck it up. And there's been no family holidays. There's been no proper time away from work, and no time away from the dog, no sitting on beaches, no sipping cocktails, and you're scrolling all your social media. Well, I am scrolling my social medias, and this friend's in that country, that friend's in that country, and I just sit on my sofa and I think, I need to get away, but like a proper holiday with no work, no housework, no dog, no family, nothing.
Yeah.
And so this year's been incredibly tough for me, like dealing with ups and downs and mental health and things. And I thought, that's what I need to do it. And that's what changed everything. I thought I need a holiday, a proper holiday.
Yeah. So it's like there's a real strong drive there, isn't there? I get that.
Yeah.
It really comes across. So what did you do? How did you get to the point where you could fly last Tuesday? What was tell us about where that started from, and did you start with us? Did you go somewhere else? I mean, I'm curious,
Okay. So I found Lovefly last year. I don't know how. I've been really thinking, because I wanted to give you an exact, story of how I come across your page, but I can't. And I just think maybe I was scrolling Facebook pages and I come across it. Now, this was last year, and I started listening to the podcast then. And I remember thinking, my goodness, like, this has helped me. And I think I must have only got to about episode 40 by that point. And I thought, this has helped me more than the hypnotherapy in London and the EasyJet course put together. And I really felt like last year I could have got on a flight, and I can't remember why I parked it. And so I was speaking to my mum a couple of Sundays ago, and I was just saying how, tired I was and how drained and how I need a break. And I was like, do you know what? I might do a test flight. She's like, what do you mean? Well, my mum was really worried because she knows how scared I am. And she just thought I was going to die from a heart attack. See, this is probably where I get it from my mum, because she's dramatic as well. So I was talking to them
I
about.
might listen to this, you know that thing.
It's all right. She'll admit it and own it. So yeah, I was talking to her about doing a test flight, and it just suddenly clicked. That's what I was going to do. And the following day, on my lunch at work, I went onto the EasyJet website. Now, even doing that, I was feeling really anxious, like just looking at flights and, would I fly at this time, take off at that time, whatever. And so I put in 2 flights for the 22nd of October. And I filled all the details out. I skipped the luggage and the seats and things, just kept skipping and skipping. And then it asked for payment. And so I was feeling really brave, put my card in. And I'm not even joking you. As true as I'm sat here, I read it as proceed with no obligation to pay. And I thought, right, I've got one more step. You can make the final decision at the next page. And I was absolutely mortified. I don't know whether it's because I was anxious, because I was like frightened, or I don't know what it was. But it didn't say proceed with no obligation to pay. It said proceed with obligation to pay. And when I pressed it and I saw the little thing go around and it's like book and confirm, I was like,
Oh my God.
I honestly, I did. I was like shitting myself because I thought, well, you've done it now. I mean, and the flights were only £47, which was good. So it was only to Belfast and back. And I immediately rang my boss in the office downstairs and I said, can I have the 22nd of October off? Like, what for? And I said, well, I told him because he knows what I'm like. And I said, you're going to have to put my job on Indeed because I'm going to die. I said, I'm not going to be coming back to work. It's going to kill me off. That's literally what I said to my boss. He's like, yeah, you can have the day off. So he approved the leave. And then I know.
I just gratitude. I've put my job on Indeed.
I did. I said to him, you might want to start advertising my job on Indeed.
That's extremely so honestly.
I'm petrified. I was petrified. And anyway, so I then got an email that said you can cancel within the first 24 hours, I think, or the first hour or 24 hours. I can't remember. Anyway, I thought, right, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and cancel the flight. So as I went to cancel it, the cancellation fee was actually more than what the flights cost. I thought, for goodness sake, like everything's telling me.
Very careful.
Yes, I know. And so, do you know what? I thought, sod it. So I booked the parking at the airport, which was actually more than the flights. And I started listening to the podcast again, but I went back to the beginning and I was listening to them like at work because I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I can work, but kind of listen to podcasts and things. So I was listening to it at work, on the way to work, on the way home, just whenever I could. I just wanted to get as many under my belt as I could for the flight. And I kind of parked the thought that I was going to be flying because it was still 2 weeks and 1 day away at that point.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, it come around very quickly.
Yeah. So you going? So really, apart from that early work, you only had a few weeks to smash through loads of stuff to help.
Yes, and I really, really did. Like, I started preparing myself, even though I didn't want to register that I was going on an airplane. I knew I needed to do it, and I knew I would get on that plane no matter what. So I needed to be prepared as I could. And even from what I took in my rucksack to the things I had on my phone to keep me, my mind busy and distracted. And so that's what I started doing for the 2 weeks. I was listening to the podcast. And what I was doing was I was being interactive with the group, which I always was anyway, but more so. And I was like taking note of other people's success stories. And I call him Mr. Bing Bong Man because he's so Peter, that's right, yeah. And he's he's such an asset to the group, honestly, because
I know.
when I put my flight up that morning I was flying, he comes up with this big long message and he's got a screenshot of your plane, or not your plane, but a plane and the flight details. And it's such a comfort to know that there's people looking out for you, and not only the professionals and the experts, but normal people in the group. Like I had people tracking me who I didn't even know.
Yeah.
And so I was like, it is, and it's such a good community, and I honestly couldn't have done it without the community of Lovefly. And I was screenshotting like things that I read in the group that if I was on an aeroplane, well, when I was on the aeroplane, would be a comfort to me. And I had like a physical copy of the check sheet, and I had a copy of it on my phone just in case I lost, the one that I had in my bag. So I was really prepared, and I was trying to do as much as I could to make that Tuesday go as smoothly as possible.
That's amazing, though, isn't it? I mean, you think what the consequences were for you, how long you had that fear, how entrenched it was, and then you've had this moment, and you just thought, right, that's it. A couple of significant things. Yeah, well, I'm glad. Yeah, Mr. Bing Bong. I am worried about him leaving the group, because the rest of us are gonna have to pull our weight. But yeah, he's just amazing. He's just amazing. He puts so much in.
He really does. He's made such a difference, and not only him. Like what I actually love as well is up until now, like I've listened to, I think I'm on episode 70 now. But what I like is you're hearing podcasts from people, but you're also seeing their names in the group. So it just gives them that. I mean, obviously they're human, but it just makes them feel real, and I really like that as well.
What is it you like about that? How's that?
Because I guess it's when you're listening to podcasts, I suppose it could be anyone from anywhere. It could be, and it could be AI. I don't know. It could be AI. It could be anything. But then when you go on the group,
You're really suspicious now, you? It could be an AI.
when you go on the group and you see comments from, there's air hostess Sarah, isn't there?
Yeah, Sarah Fowler. Yeah.
She was amazing because I did put a little panic post up about EasyJet because I went onto LinkedIn and I noticed they were hiring for cabin crew. And it said, oh, it's a quick 4-week training course. And I'm thinking, wait, what? That's not what I've heard on the podcasts. But then Sarah was commenting, and she actually put a picture of the training manuals that they have, and it just showed how intense the 4 weeks were. And I think what they meant was it's a 4-week like initial course, but then your training then really happens after that. And she posted a picture of the books, and they were like super thick. And I really liked that. They give the personal touch in the group, and it was really helpful for me to know that they are normal human beings.
Yeah. Yeah, Sarah's great. She's worked with me now for many years, and she's brilliant. She works as team lead. She used to do the speaking run on the large monster courses that we used to run, like EasyJet used to like do. And yeah, she's just great. I think it is quite reassuring because it's like people talk about turnaround times. They sort of go, "How can you do that much in an hour? How can I turn the aircraft around?" But they sort of forget that, well, actually, your car gets that once a year, and it's cheaper materials and cheaper everything, and we're quite happy with that. But it's the mind. And then with Sarah, and I think that's a really good point because the length of training has reduced with all airlines, but only because of technology. So they can front load, or they can give you stuff up front. You can do some airlines you have to have done the by the door attestation already, paid for it yourself, and gone and done it somewhere else. And so there are lots of ways because it's so expensive to train crew up. So yeah, that's good. I'm glad you got the answer to that. 4 weeks is still booked a lot. I think when I did my training, it was like 6 weeks, and it felt like forever. Do you know what I mean? It was pretty intense. It was pretty,
And I have done a lot of research, and with the group as well. I mean, what I liked to think about, I mean, I've learned so much from your group. It's ridiculous. Like, and do you know what I found? I mean, I'll go back to the day I flew because obviously that's quite important. But when I got home that night, I put something on my own Facebook about how I was so proud of myself, and I've never said that in my life. And one of my friends, he messaged me privately, and he was like, "Oh God, Lisa, I'm flying to Spain tomorrow. I'm so scared." And I was like, "Neil, you're going to be fine. They've got this in place. They've got that in place." And I'm thinking, "Oh my God, who even am I?" But it's because of your group that I'm so educated now. And I was in work the other day, and the guys were speaking about planes and how far they need to be apart. And I'm like, no, it's 10 miles this way, 10 miles that way. And I think it's about a mile left to right. So, and I know these things because of the group, and I'm so much more educated now. And honestly, I definitely couldn't have done what I did on the 22nd without the podcast. And,
let's I don't know about the flight in the second, what tips will you help, but you're going to turn into, if you're anything like me, my family know the quickest way to wind me up is someone comes round and then says something that's in the media about aviation. I can't bear it. Or someone comes up to me, talks about at an event and says, "Oh, I've heard blah 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 blah," and I'm like, "Oh God!" It's like such a sport, and you'll end up like that, where you'll hear stuff and you go, "Well, that's crap."
Yeah, I kind of am now. Like if I'm scrolling TikTok and you like one video of, I don't know, a turbulent aircraft, and then kind of that's all that's on your For You page, and like I'm reading comments and I'm reading people's like irrational thought processes, and I'm thinking, gosh, that was me. And I write on every single video as much as I can, go to this page, honestly, because you're more than welcome. Honestly, it's life changing. And I don't know whether you really realize it. I know I listened to a podcast where you were like, I'm not ever sure we really help anyone. I mean, obviously this was a while ago now, a few years, because I'm still in the early stages of them, but they really do. And from somebody that has paid a lot of money for hypnotherapy and a course, when I've done this for free, and yes, I've done it myself, but with my mindset and the work that happens in the background, but I couldn't have done it without the podcast.
Wow. Thank you. So tell us what the flight is like then. So, how was he? Did you have any anticipatory anxiety? If you did, what did you do about it? Talk us through the vault. This is where you get your list out.
Yeah. Well, trust me, everything that happened on that day is etched in my brain, but I do have a list. Let me just get to that page just in case I start feeling anxious again. Right. So I drove to Birmingham. I parked in car park 1. I didn't want to mess around with any transfers. Literally walked over the zebra crossing, and then I was at departures, because normally I go to arrivals and I'm picking other people up, but I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I was going to departures. I had my little rucksack on, and that rucksack had everything in it that I've ever read on your group. Oh, somebody took chewing gum, I took chewing gum. Somebody took mints, I took mints. Somebody in the past has took World Sweets, I took everything that everyone has ever recommended, because I was like, I don't want to take any risks. If I need it, I want to know it's there. In my rucksack, I had letters to the crew for both flights. I had my AirPods and just magazines and books. Like, it's blimmin' 40 minutes, and I was prepared for hours. So I go through. My first thought was, I want to speak to somebody from EasyJet. I need to tell them how petrified I am and ask if I can speak to the captains. The reason being, Captain Steve on your podcast, I honestly think I would trust that man to fly me around the world. Honestly, he just sounds so experienced and so confident, and he knows everything. And I was thinking, if I can trust Captain Steve, I just knew if I could speak to the captains, I would have felt better. So in my mindset, I was on like a mission to find somebody from EasyJet. I walked into departures, no one. There was Jet2 staff everywhere, not one EasyJet person. And then I thought, right, don't panic yet. So I go to security, and security was manic, absolutely manic. And the queues were huge, and like it was, I don't know how to explain it. It just felt chaotic, and I felt my anxiety rising, and I put my rucksack and my phone in, and obviously you go through the scanner. That was fine. And I remember waiting to get my rucksack out, and I actually felt like I was going to cry. And I thought, no, don't do it. And I think that's because I really did think there would be an EasyJet rep at departures, and that would like reassure me, but I couldn't see anybody. So I was walking through duty free and everything. I managed to eat breakfast, because that was for me, because I thought, how are you going to control yourself if you've not even got any fuel? So I went to Spoons and got breakfast, and I was just looking at people's faces, and I was like eating my rescue remedy sweet, and I was looking at this person, and she had a pint of whatever, and they're happy and laughing, and everyone's just so happy and relaxed. Yeah, I know. And I was just looking around thinking, why can't that be me? And so anyway, I had something quick to eat, went and got a bottle of water, and then I was like, right, I need to go to where I need to be. And it did say, I think it was head towards area 2035 or something. And so I walked down. There was still no one from EasyJet there. And I was feeling really anxious by this point. And I ended up speaking to an airport worker. Now, I don't know what he does. Maybe he's a maintenance man or something. And I said to him, do you know if there's anywhere I can speak to somebody from EasyJet? And he went to the EasyJet desk and used the phone. And then he said to me, what's wrong? And I told him. He was like, oh, what are you scared of? And I told him. And then he tried saying to me, oh, you'll be fine because, it's safe and it's this and it's that. And I'm thinking, I bloody know that. Like, found myself getting angry. I wasn't angry at him, but internally I found myself getting angry. I'm thinking, I know all this. Maybe I was angry at myself because everything he was trying to tell me to reassure me, I knew. And then he couldn't get anyone from EasyJet to speak to me either. But he did say to me, I don't think you should tell anybody how scared you are. Now, bear in mind, I wasn't being erratic. I was just calm. I wasn't crying. I wasn't visibly upset. He said, I don't think you should tell anyone because they might not let you on the plane. And at that point, I thought, this is going nowhere. So I thanked him for his help. And an EasyJet rep did come to the desk and they had a conversation. And so this EasyJet rep said to me, I know you're scared, but you've got nothing to be scared of. And I was like, okay, I know. But he said, will it help if you get on the plane first? And I thought, do you know what? Yeah. So he let me go on first, scanned my boarding pass, didn't even need my passport. And then I walked down to the door, which was the last door before you go onto the tarmac. Oh my gosh. So I'd just seen the plane land because I knew it was, I don't know what they call it now, where it comes in and goes back out. And I'd seen the plane land. Honestly, my hands, they're actually clammy now. Thinking about it, my hands were so clammy. And I was just pacing back and forth. Bear in mind, I'm at the front of the queue and you've got all these serious men behind me, like businessmen who just fly every day and they don't give a toss, and people who are not scared. And I'm pacing and I'm sweating and I'm chewing on my sweets and I'm sucking the rescue remedy liquid out of the pipette. And I got myself into a bit of a state, but externally, I don't think people would have known. And then they opened the door and we had to wait at the bottom of the steps. I honestly thought I was going to pass out. I felt so dizzy. I felt so scared. But I walked up the steps and I gave the air hostess, the crew lady, my letter. And then I walked down to the back of the plane because I was in seat 25. And I felt myself, I need to get off. I need to get off. I can't do it. I'm going to panic. My knees are shaking now, thinking about how I felt then. The panic in me was just rising and I couldn't control it anymore. And then I'm so thankful for Christine, the manager, the crew manager. I can't remember what her official title is, bless her. But she's the team leader sort of thing. She was the one that I gave the letter to, and she come to see me and she said, is it Lisa? And I said, yeah. She said, do you want to come and speak to the captains? No, I hadn't even mentioned that to anybody and hadn't put that in my letter because I'd never expect that from them because I know they're busy. I just wanted to speak with somebody one-on-one. But anyway, so it surprised me.
So it was your own letter. It wasn't the nervous flight production letter. It was your own little letter.
I'd written her a little letter, probably depressed her with some of the contents because I was like, my marriage ended because of this. But yeah, it was a very short one because I knew they'd be busy. But she came up to me and just as I was about to try and get off the plane, and she said to me, would you like to come and meet the captains? And honestly, I was up there and just her saying that, I was like, yes, please. I just felt absolutely ecstatic. So we walked down the plane and I met the captain and the first officer and we shook hands and they were from Belfast and the captain was telling me he's been flying for 22 years. I can't remember his name because I was absolutely, in a heightened state of whatever. And we shook hands and I told them I was really, really scared. And they were like, this is the 4th time we've done this route today because they just come back and forth from Belfast. It's like, when we get home, we've got the afternoon off. It was like, nothing's going to happen. It's safe. And if it wasn't safe, we wouldn't do the job. But just seeing the captain, seeing the cockpit, I walked back to my seat And honestly, I felt euphoric. I felt like I could conquer anything. And it's so weird how that made such a difference to me. And bless Christine, she walked me back to my seat and she said, "Do you want to come and sit down the front so you're near me?" And I was like, "Yes, please." So she put me in row 3. And I was honestly so happy. I was like smiling, all the stresses and anxiety had gone, and everyone just kept checking on me. Anyway, we started taxiing, and I was just at the point where I was like, "Come on, just get it over and done with," because I felt like I could conquer anything.
Mm.
And it was a brand new EasyJet plane, by the way, and it was a lovely plane, so roomy, and I could see it out both windows, which I think made a difference. Anyway, we took off. And I was a little bit anxious. I was speaking to the woman next to me. I think I got on her nerves, to be honest, because she was trying to do like a VAT return or something. And I was like, "Are you all right?" And she was like, "Yeah." And then she kind of turned her back on me. And I was like, because when I'm nervous, I just like to chew the ear off people and just like distract myself. But yeah, she turned her back on me for the rest of the flight. She probably thought I was weird. But anyway, we got in the air.
Did it just say she turned her back to you?
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
I know, but I mean, I can't blame her. Otherwise, she wouldn't have had a break from me for the whole flight, bless her, because, I like with that bad flight to Malta, that poor old lady next to me, she heard my life story for like 4.5 hours just so I could distract myself. Anyway, we got in the air and obviously the signal come on where the crew could stand up. And I just burst into tears. I absolutely burst into tears. And I just cried like a baby. And Christine was like behind the privacy board and she was looking over and she was like, "Are you all right?" I was like, "I'm really happy." I never ever thought I would be able to fly again. And yeah, we were up there and I downloaded the most recent episode of EastEnders on my phone as well. So when we got to like the cruising level, I thought, right, watch that. By the time you watch that, you'll be down. But I couldn't even watch it because so many people coming and checking on me. "Are you okay?" Like it was lovely. And yeah, I could see the coastline of Ireland, and obviously when the captain said, "Get ready for landing," I was kind of inside like, yes, we're landing now. Landed in Belfast. I literally went and got 10 minutes of fresh air and then went back through bloody security to come back to Birmingham. But the security at Belfast was less stressful because I'd just done it. And I went and had something to eat in the departure lounge at Belfast. I kept needing a wee like every 5 minutes. I think that was like a little bit of nerves. But then this flight back, actually, sorry, before I got off at Belfast, Christine said to me, "Oh, you've got Claire on your flight on the way home." She said, "I've texted her and I've told her to look after you." So she looked up the crew that were coming back to Birmingham and she texted Claire and said, "Look after Lisa." So anyway, so I went
That's
to
amazing customer service, though, isn't it?
Oh, honestly, and actually, when I got off the plane at Belfast, I couldn't help it. Because actually, Chris, I've missed loads out. See, this is why I should look at my nose. But when
Let us know. It's all right. There's no rush.
Christine had said to me, when she put me into row 3, she'd said at the end of the flight, "Come back to the front of the plane, come back to the cockpit, and you can have your picture taken in there." And I was like, "Okay, that's amazing." So everybody got off, and I left my bag, and I went to see the captain again. And he was like, "Oh, do you want a picture in sitting in my seat?" And I was like, "Look at the size of me. Look how tiny your area is." He's like, "Don't worry about it." He pulled the seat back, so I managed to get in his seat. It's such a tiny space. And he took a picture of me like this, but I look horrific. I will never look at that picture ever again. But I think I posted it in the group, but I covered my face and my body because, yeah, I just honestly, I felt like an absolute tank in this poor man's seat. But yeah, it was an achievement for me and I was so proud of myself. And I got off, as I was getting off the plane, I gave Christine like a big hug and I gave her colleague a big hug. And I saw a TikTok about what do cabin crew dislike the most. And it's like people touching us. And I'm thinking, "Oh God, Christine, I'm so sorry." But I was just so happy. So I gave her a big hug. And I really hope if she didn't mind. And But yeah, I just couldn't help it. I was I was happy and I felt relieved it was over.
Well, just to
So
reassure you, yes, some crew will post stuff like that on TikTok, but the reality is they they do it because they like to help people. And they're like, she probably made her month.
bless her. She was so good to me. Honestly, I felt like I needed to get her a bunch of flowers. I just because she made such a difference. But until she come up to me, I was ready to get off. And even even if she hadn't have arranged for me to go and see the captains, and she'd have just checked on me the way she did, it would have been enough. But she went above and beyond. And actually, when I got home, EasyJet email you and ask for feedback, and I wrote them like a paragraph about all of the crew and the experience on both flights. And so I hope some does get fed back to them because
Yeah,
they really made a difference.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that was great. So the return flight, how was that?
Well, the return flight, I was very confident. Um, it was an older EasyJet plane, so it felt a lot smaller. So and maybe it was a different model. It was packed, absolutely packed, and I went and sat down. I think I was in row 20. And this man sat by the window, so we had the middle seat free. And I'd given a note to Claire as I was getting on the plane. I said, "Are you Claire?" Like, yeah. Are you Lisa? I was like, "Yeah." I gave her the note anyway, and she was so good. And yeah, so the plane was very busy. I couldn't see out of either window because it was so busy and people were leaning forward. And I started getting a little bit anxious because on the flight to Belfast, when I felt a little bit woozy or lightheaded, I would look to ground myself, which of course you've said to do on your podcast, that try and look at the horizon. And so the minute I noticed I couldn't do that, I was thinking, right, don't panic, it'll be fine. Um, but the flight felt very cramped and it was very busy, but we took off. And of course, because Christine had been texting Claire and I'd given Claire the message, everyone kept coming to check on me. And so this poor man sat beside me at the point of takeoff again. I was like, "Oh, are you okay?" Because I love to talk. And he looked at me and was like, "I'm all right, but maybe I should ask you if you're all right." Because he obviously realized I was a nervous flyer. Um, and you know what? It did feel a little bit bumpy, and I was very aware of it, but it didn't last long. And then I was basically, if I felt like I was going to panic, I would just tell myself to like grow up, man up, like just ignore it, just ignore those feelings. And actually, what one thing that I did do before flying, I listed in my phone the three things that caused me a little bit of anxiety. Obviously, the top one is turbulence, that it was weather and being in control. And so when I'm in the air, I knew how I'd be feeling. And so it was so important for me to write a note to myself. So I was maybe led in bed or sat at work or something. And I wrote a message to myself under the headline of turbulence, bad weather, and not being in control. And it was so helpful for me because when I was feeling a little bit anxious, my rational brain was reading a message from my rational brain. And it helped me so much.
Yeah.
Um,
So
anyway, so
good.
yeah, well, it helped me. And when we landed in Birmingham, it was a great landing. It was a good flight. I honestly felt elated. I felt as I was walking down the steps of the plane, like I felt like I'd achieved such a great thing. I felt like I should have had like a champagne welcome or something. Like
Where was it?
where I know because I felt like I conquered something that I never thought I would. And even though I was still a bit anxious, cruising, but the fact that I got on the plane, the door closing didn't worry me, the takeoff didn't worry me, the landing didn't worry me. It's just that cruising anxiety. And when I come home and I was thinking back about everything that had happened, um, I actually felt a little bit annoyed at myself about how anxious I got at that little tiny bit of turbulence because I was like, it actually wasn't anything. And so, yeah, I was a bit annoyed with myself, but I was absolutely ecstatic. I was proud. I was I was just feeling so many mixed emotions. And
Finally,
then,
Lisa, you've done so well. So interrupt there. I just couldn't let that go. You've and this is like what anxious flyers do. That you've made significant progress there, and then you sort of go back and go, but I was a bit anxious at this point. I wasn't. To me, it's just you've come on huge leaps there. But it's quite bumpy, so the path was.
yeah, and that is a very good point, because when I think back to that, my last flight before that to Paris, and I cried the whole way there and the whole way back. To say I actually enjoyed it was maybe a bit loose, but I kind of did. And I was driving down the M5 the day after just to go and do a bit of shopping. And I looked up and there was a plane in the sky, and I actually thought to myself, I wish I was on that, because I felt I know. I know, but it's because I felt so happy and so confident with what had happened. I just felt like I needed to do it again, ASAP, to keep that up. And so I really did look up, and I thought to myself, I really wish I was on that plane. And I have booked another flight. So I'm going to fly to Edinburgh. It's only a short one again, but I just feel like I need to keep chipping away.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently Edinburgh, that route can be quite turbulent. But I'm flying with my dad and my brother. They're both huge aviation geeks. My brother does everything about planes and flying, and when things go wrong, what they do to fix it. Like, he knows a lot. And I always thought to myself, I feel so safe flying with him. Not that he can change anything. It's silly, really. So the three of us are going to Edinburgh 2 weeks tomorrow.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
And I hope by the end of maybe March, I've actually maybe done a week's 10 days in Spain, which I know is about 2.5 hours, but it's about taking things slowly and at the right pace for me.
No, I love that. That's absolutely brilliant. That's been remarkable. And to have another flight booked already.
It was important for me, actually, because I've got a little scenario. So I remember, if this isn't relevant, take it out, it's fine. But I remember I was watching my friend. She got like a big rose tattoo there. This was a few years ago now. And she was having this tattoo. And I remember watching her face thinking, how the bloody hell can you sit there and let them like stab you continuously for 2 hours and nothing on her face, like just taking it like a champ. But over the years, you can't see them because I'm covered up, but I've got quite a few little tattoos now, to the point where I could easily sit. In fact, I sat for 2 hours, a 2 hour session a few weeks ago. And I could do that again and again. And I just think to myself that that's how I need to approach this flying thing. Like, for me, I'm looking at someone thinking, you're going to America. Like, how are you not scared, or how are you not anxious about flying for so long? Or are you crazy? And I just want to be at a point now where I'm taking short flights and doing little stints, and I will build up. Actually, I really want to go to, is there a place called where you can swim with turtles? I think it's in the Caribbean.
Yes.
And it's an 8-hour flight. That will eventually be my goal. Now, it won't happen this year, or probably not next year, but that is my goal, to go there and swim with the turtles.
No, that's lovely. Yeah, it's important to have things like that, because and also that's such a positive image to hold on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's remarkable. So what were you... Oh, there's so many things I want to ask you. I mean, from so what you've done so far, of the sort of 70 odd podcasts, are there any that you would say, if you've only got 5 you could listen to, these are my 5?
It's funny, actually, because every time I listen to a podcast, if I thought there was a sentence or a section in there that would help me, I saved and downloaded it. So that was another thing I had in my phone. I think I've got about 10 to 12 saved. Obviously episode 44, which I did listen to just in one AirPod on takeoff, which is the relaxation one. I saved the one where Sarah spoke about the crew training, and if you're going to become ill or whatever, then the best place for that is on a plane, because they're so well skilled and trained. So I saved that one. And there was a couple about turbulence that I saved as well. But they're the ones that are personal to me. So to be honest with you, I can take something from all of them.
Yeah.
But I just needed to save the ones I can't remember what they are on the top of my head. But yeah, I did save about 12 of them.
That's enough. You can search. Yeah, you can search in the podcast. Sarah Fowler, she's done a couple. Turbulence comes up quite a few times. So whichever way you listen to it, you can search within there anyway. If you go on to Podbean itself, who we host it with, you can do a slightly more complicated search, and all of them available because some podcast hosts you can't get past episode 4 or the early ones. So you listened to all the early ones as well when it was like working out what the hell we were doing,
Yeah. One thing I will say, the podcasts have educated me so much that what I say to people now, like obviously the safest part of your journey is when you're on the aircraft, and I compare it to you going out in your car. Like comparing flying to being in your car would be, for example, every time you get in your car, somebody's done an MOT on it. And not only have they done an MOT, you've got an expert driver who's going to take you to where you want to go, whether it's Morrison's or wherever. And not only have you got an expert driver in your car, you've also got a highly skilled team telling you exactly what route to take because there's less traffic or it's less dangerous. And I think when you compare it to that, it's just amazing how safe flying really is. It's just the irrational things we tell ourselves in the meantime.
Yeah. No, that's a very good way to describe it, actually. That's and and not only that, you've got co-driver, you've got backups. It's just it's a completely different mode of transport. And like I've always said, it's not 100% safe. It's not far off. Nothing's 100. Living isn't 100% safe. There's risk everywhere. It's the most well managed risk in terms of any form of transport, bar none. And I think it's just got to hold on to those things, haven't we? That it's like someone else has taken care of it.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's been thought of, and I've done. I was listening to your podcast actually. I can't remember the lady's name. Is it Jacqueline? And she was on the Virgin aircraft where they had issues with the landing gear 7 years ago.
Yeah, Jacqueline.
And what I think is amazing and also reassures me is that pin that failed. The chances of that ever happening again are second to none because they've done so much research on it and they've made so many changes. And that's what I like about aviation as well is, yes, things can go wrong, but if it goes wrong, it's probably only going to go wrong once and then everything's changed and there are measures put into place to prevent it happening again. And that's the things that I think of when I feel anxious.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And you just summed it up beautifully. Things can go wrong, but you've got so many backups and so many sort of checkups along the way that the chance of like 9 things in a row go wrong, 9 things being missed, I can't remember what the statistic is. And actually, I don't really major on statistics, so it doesn't help you when you're scared. It's like people saying, it's safe. It's like, well, yeah, well, if I thought it was safe, I would be telling you I'm nervous, would I? For goodness sake. I think people are just desperate, don't know what to say at that point. You'll be fine. It's like,
I know. That's why I was getting annoyed at Birmingham Airport because, like, the 2 people I was trying to confide in were just trying to tell me, "Oh, you'll be fine, and it's safe, and it's this." And I think I was more annoyed at myself for even needing to speak to these people because I knew everything they told me. I already knew, and I knew because of your podcasts and the work that I've put in as well. And I think that's kind of why I was getting frustrated. But what I actually forgot to say as well was as I was waiting to board the plane to Belfast, I noticed everything you said that would happen, like the fuel coming and, topping up the fuel and the captain coming out and doing his inspections. Like I was noticing everything that you've said on your podcast.
It's not a lie. It's all true.
I know.
Lisa, that's been amazing. That's like tip after tip. So if you were to kind of give your final bit of someone's listened to this, maybe this is the first podcast they've listened to, or maybe they've given up on themselves. What would your advice or main tips be?
Firstly, anyone that knows me and loves me, knows the fact that I got on a plane nearly 2 weeks ago is absolutely amazing. And I know everybody says this, but genuinely, if I can do it and I've got another flight booked, it is possible for everybody. You can't think it's a quick fix, because it's not. You do have to put in work every single day, even if it's just 10 minutes. But if you really want to do it, you can. Listen to the podcast, trust the process, trust the professionals, be as prepared as you can. Take things, download games, download EastEnders, write yourself little notes, be prepared, and have things to distract yourself, and just trust the process. And I know turbulence is a big one for everyone that's scared, but it's really, really, really not unsafe. It's not dangerous. We just need to make sure we're buckled up. And that's what I kept telling myself the whole way there. It's not unsafe. It's just uncomfortable. And just believe in yourself and trust the professionals and speak to people like Christine. Without Christine on that flight to Belfast, I would have got off. I 100% think I would have got off.
Yeah.
Because I'd worked myself up so much, but trust them, and they're trained to help us. So, and I do think when I get on the plane to Edinburgh in 2 weeks, I think it'll be a much calmer experience for me.
I love the fact that you're already visualizing that rather than the alternative.
To be fair, I'm going with my dad and my brother, and if I start playing up, they'll tell me to bloody grow up anyway. They'll tell me to pack it in there, but at least you're embarrassing us. Stop it. So,
Tough love.
well, that's exactly what they're like.
Yeah. Well, there's something to be said for that as well, because I think sometimes the worst thing that a well-meaning person can do is say, "Are you sure you're all right?"
Yeah, that makes me worse.
You tap you and go, "Are you sure?" Give you the look. You sure you're okay? Yeah. So you're better off sometimes to be. Because I remember Wes talking about this with his partner, and she was like, "Well, I'm going to get on there whether you want to or not. Pack it in." And it's not they don't care, but it's just a bit like that. Like, we're going, and I think that can be quite helpful because there's some sort of certainty in that, isn't there? You know where you stand. And,
Yeah, exactly. I honestly, I really sympathize with anybody who has a partner and they're scared of flying, or the partner's scared of flying. It puts so much pressure on the relationship, but it can be beaten, and just don't give up. I mean, I grounded myself for 5 years, and honestly, I cried in the air because I never thought I would fly again, and I was just so proud of myself. I've never ever in my 43 years on this earth been proud of myself, apart from last Tuesday.
Wow.
So,
wow, that is a great thing.
and it's all thanks to you, honestly, Paul. Like I said to you earlier.
Right, I don't like all that. Lisa done the work, okay? So we put the stuff out there, but people, I was saying, we were doing at the time this is recorded, we had got the Love Fly Lounge launched a few weeks ago, and we got this group of people that we meet up every week, and a membership group. And I was saying to them this morning, I said, it's just that consistent chipping away, doing something every day, and that's exactly what you've personified. That's exactly what you did, and that's what it is, because you put the material there, but people have got to engage with it. And basically, they want the quick fix or the one-day magic, which I am guilty that I did run those courses for a long time, as you know. But I always used to say it's part of the process. We just didn't have this offer then, whereas now we've got much more good people like you who are committed the chance to do something, and you've done the work, and your success is down to your effort.
Thank you, but I couldn't have done it without you guys and the support that everybody gives. And I know I say it all the time, but it's just thanks to everybody in the group. I had so many screenshots of positive messages from people and words of advice, and it was just things to read in the air when I was feeling a bit anxious or needed a bit of a boost, and it really does help. And I will have all of that stuff going to Edinburgh. Fingers crossed I won't need it, but I'll be prepared just in case I do. But the work that you do is amazing, and you've made such a difference to me. And next time I'm swiping on Tinder and someone's like, oh, I love travel. I don't have to fight no anymore because maybe I will be traveling with them. Honestly, everyone's like, oh, travel. And I'm like, no, because I don't know.
Unexpected side bonus. Oh, maybe we'll get some sponsorship from Tinder. Yeah.
Oh, God.
That's really good. That's really good. That's what I hadn't thought about it like that, but that's a very good point.
Everybody on their bloody Tinder profiles, like, I love to travel. And for me, that was like a big no, because how can I start to get to know somebody and then say, well, if you want to go on holiday, we have to go to Butlins or something because I can't fly anywhere, but it's not going to be the way forward now. So I'm
The dating pool is truly opened up for you now.
absolutely, the world's my oyster with everything.
Oh, brilliant. Well, Lisa, that was great. Thank you so much for that and all that little bit of wisdom and top tips and just your effort and your stories. And I think I like the way you took us through that. And, we were there with you, as you were up in the air.
No, and I hope it has been helpful for at least one person anyway. And I know my mind's like chaotic because I still feel a little bit erratic because I can't believe I did it. But yeah, I hope somebody takes something away from it. But yeah, thank you to you and all of your team and everybody in the group. Like it feels like a second family, and I definitely couldn't have done it without everybody.
Oh, you're very welcome. Oh, it's, and it's also down to people like you doing what you do. So putting stuff in the group as well, like you've done, when everybody tracks each other and puts messages up there. And and also giving your time for the podcast today and sharing your story.
It's the least.
Well, thank you.
I feel like I owe you a bunch of flowers as well. You're lucky I can't give you a hug like poor Christine.
Well, no. Well, I don't want to say that, but yes, welcome. You're very welcome. And I'm just glad that you've been able to make the use of the stuff that's there. And we want to hear how Edinburgh goes. Okay.
I will post in the group when I come back home from Edinburgh, and then I will post in the group when I book my holiday to Spain next year, because that will be the first place I go, I think, Spain.
Yeah. Amazing.
So, but one thing I will say, sorry, when I landed in Birmingham, I was absolutely gobsmacked because I thought, Lisa, today you've done 2 takeoffs, 2 landings, and you cruised for a total of just over an hour, compared to the fact that you were prepared to die rather than fly a few years ago. So a huge pat on the back to myself. And yeah, I know we already kind of ended, but I just wanted to let you know that that's what I thought, and that is down to the support from you guys.
Yeah, well, no, you're amazing. I mean, I think, and I loved your the trigger with that sort of ferry. And you think,
yeah,
that was a really good trigger point, wasn't it? To sort of think,
yeah,
this I'm going a safer way, but look how unpleasant this is,
Yeah, and it was just so long and drawn out, and I was anxious for the whole time, whereas it could have been maybe a little bit unpleasant at times on the plane to Amsterdam, but it's, an hour in the air. Yeah, you have the airport before and after, but you kind of have that on the boat anyway. And it was just a no-brainer for me, like laying there anxious, bobbing around for 4 hours or being on a plane for an hour and then you're there. So it's just a no-brainer, and I will fly to Amsterdam one day as well.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Take care, settle.
See you later.
And you, yes, we'll look forward to seeing you in the group.
Yep, I'm not going anywhere.